Namaste everyone. Hope you all are doing well and enjoying this afternoon. Uh, it is my great honor to welcome you all on behalf of Life in Yoga Institute and its esteemed founder, the well-respected Dr. Rajan Narayanan, who is here with us today. Let's begin by closing our eyes and chanting Om together 3 times. So please close your eyes. Let's chant together. Is not only a sound, it is a vibration that connects us to a higher state of being. We all have heard the word called yoga, and many times, many of us have practiced different yoga poses, which we call asanas in Sanskrit. Let me ask you a question. How many of you have never done yoga before? Raise your hands. Okay. Just to let you know, I'm just going to break this to you, that we all have been doing yoga since our birth. And that is fact. I know we have not realized it, but yes, since our birth, we have been doing yoga. So, have you noticed that when babies breathe, they breathe from their belly and they naturally practice yoga asanas without any knowledge or education? They do different poses unknowingly. That is also a yoga. Unfortunately, as we grow up, we forget how to breathe properly and how to stretch, how to stay present and enjoy the moment, and even how to live, because we allow the outside world and our own thoughts to cloud our minds and our bodies. Why? Yoga is composed of meditation, breathing, mantras, tantras, and pauses. It is much more than that we have not yet realized. As excellently written in Dr. Narayanan's book, Yoga Concepts for Global Application, which is available here on the table if you guys would like to buy that copy. The purpose of yoga is the body, mind, and spirit integration that leads to the realization of the nature of existence and the understanding that one is only an instrument of the cosmic flow, just the instrument. This life, this body is a precious gift. Living in yoga enables us to honor this gift and help us achieve our unique purpose. It is our mind, body, and soul connection. So, do you think it is possible for you to achieve this yogic state without much effort and time? Well, I can tell you with absolute certainty that it is possible. And I myself is an example of realizing after, during COVID time, I did realize. And that's why Dr. Narayanan is here with us to share that how can we achieve in our busy life schedule. I'm not the only one. Many have benefited from Dr. Narayanan's teachings. I am grateful to have him here today to present his book and talk about yoga and meditation. I am also grateful to the many volunteers who have helped put this event together, including Shobha Swami, a nutritionist, Rama. So thank you again for all your help, and all my other friends and family members, volunteers, and including Alpharetta Public Library and their wonderful staff for hosting this event. So without further ado, I take great honor in introducing Dr. Narayananji, an expert, realized, and experienced master yogi. So please come.
Thank you. You know what? We can have a real conversation if you care to be over here, and I'll be seated. We can have a conversation as opposed to this kind of presentation. If there are 100 people here, that we can do that. But having coming closer, we just talk to each other, right? It works for you? This good?
Good.
Okay. So, sound is good enough? Okay, that's fine. Okay. So first, Hero has told you many things over here. That many people often think of yoga as the stretching exercises in the gym. However, this is much beyond. Yoga is about integration of the body, mind, and the spirit, or the soul, as you would call it. So, all of this book has come through, all of this has come through the Council for Yoga Accreditation International, and you can see the logo of Council for Yoga Accreditation International. And we wrote this book. Oh, you hear me? Okay. And we wrote this book because we felt yoga was being misrepresented and the spiritual aspects were not understood. So what we wanted to do is, we wanted to go into the original documents, the philosophy, and we wanted to look at the scientific evidence of how it has been integrated and how practices flow from it. So, if you saw the book over there, we'll see the back cover a little while later. The most interesting comment came from an Islamic scholar. He's considered the top 50 authorities in Islam in the world. And he serves in the council of the King of Jordan, who has a Al-Bayat Institute or something like that. He serves in that council. And he may end up becoming the president of India, right, of Libya, president of Libya. And he's there now trying to form a government. This man, he read the book, he had come to Washington and he spent time with me. He read the book and basically his comment was, this book is based on authentic foundation, namely the authentic documents of yoga. And it has the openness to see spirituality in every domain. And in addition to that, he said, this has been written so appropriately for the benefit of humanity. And he made the comment, if a book fulfills these three, it must be a very valuable book. So this coming from an Islamic scholar. So you can understand when we look at yoga as it's called, or yoga as it's more often said, really it is all about finding our inner awareness, the connection between the body, mind, and whatever is the spirit beyond. And that equates to total wellness, that equates to total harmony within yourself. So that is why I have the title of it as Yoga Concepts for Global Applications. That's the name of the book, but that is equal to total wellness. And while I was the principal author, I wrote 80-90% of the book. It is really the joint work of a number of other people. A very important person, a colleague of mine, Stephen Parker, he is out of Minnesota. And he has been trained in the Himalayan Institute tradition. And we have worked together for many years together, a very close friend of mine. And then we have a person from Dubai, Sanjeev Krishna. And he's a very prominent person in the Gulf countries in the Islamic world. And then we have Idris Rao Odrogo. This man was an ambassador to India from the country of Burkina Faso, which used to be called Upper Volta when the French governed that country. So, and he is the head of the West African Association, the West African Yoga Association. So 6 countries in West Africa. He has actually trained the Burkina Faso army in yoga, and he has trained many teachers over there. So that is how it is being used. And one of the most fascinating things about him is, I don't know how many of you know, West Africa has a lot of sickle cell anemia as a condition. So if you didn't know, now you know it, and somebody is nodding their head, so she clearly knew it. But with his daily meditative yoga practices, he completely overcame his sickle cell anemia. Okay? In other words, it may be inherently there, but it doesn't bother him. And in the normal lifespan in these West African countries with the sickle cell anemia as a hereditary condition, it is like people don't live much beyond 60. Okay? And if you look at the population, you will find that like 70% of the population is under the age of 30. Okay, so that's how it is. And here in these countries, typically people sleep 13, 14 hours a day. Because of the sickle cell, they're not getting enough oxygen in the system. So they feel tired, right? So Idris was a person, Ambassador Idris Odrogo. So he's another co-author. And then Ratna Nandakumar is a retired professor from the University of Delaware, and she works closely with me. Our institute is called Life in Yoga Institute, and there is a foundation that goes along with it, which is a separate non-profit organization, and she is the chair of the foundation. So that gives you a sense in terms of how Hiral was telling us about yoga being much broader, why we found it was necessary to write this book, to dispel the confusion created in the world, where most people think of yoga as stretching exercises, right? So, that was. If I don't use it for a while, it freezes. Okay. So here, when we think in terms of wellness, most people, you would call wellness in terms of physical wellness and mental wellness, right? However, real wellness actually comes from spiritual wellness. And of course, if you get into the silo of any religion, the religion is all telling you, have your faith in whichever God that you may be thinking of, then in which case, that balances many things. And often you hear of people, preachers who talk about the healing aspect of their faith in God and all of that. But in reality, it is the spiritual wellness that governs the mental and physical wellness. And in today's world, we can actually approach spiritual wellness even from a scientific angle. This is going to be a little mind-boggling for you. However, it is science. Science means something that is repeatable, something that we can measure with instrumentation. So I'll show you all of that, and this may be a little different for you from what you would have expected. Okay? So please come in. It's open for anyone. Come join us. Okay? So understanding that physical and mental wellness flows from spiritual wellness, let's look at the yoga view of the spiritual nature of existence. And this yoga view, believe it or not, it is common to practically every religion in the world. There is no difference between religions when you go to it. There may be a difference in terminology, but the structure is identical. And that is why even an Islamic scholar would be able to say that this is in sync with everything that he knows. So the first idea is everything comes from God. By the way, how many people knew that yoga is a theistic religion, is a theistic system? Okay?
Many of you may not know that yoga is a theistic system. It believes in the idea of God. There's no religion behind it. There are no specific rituals behind it. However, it is a theistic system, theistic philosophy. Out of God, that is called, God is referred in the Yoga Sutras, which is the document of yoga, as Ishvara in the Indian sense, but you can just translate it as God. Okay? And out of God comes the first impetus for creation. And that first impetus of creation is often referred in many, many different ways. In yoga it is called Prakriti. In various religious systems it is called as the Divine Mother. The mother that gives birth to the entire, all of existence. Right? And the word Prakriti literally means, is a Sanskrit prefix which means Prakrishta. And Kriti is something you are very familiar with. For anybody who knows anything about music, Indian music, they call a composition as a Kriti. So Prakrishta Kriti means that creation that is inherently connected to the root source of everything, which is God. So that is the name given in the Yoga Sutras, but as I said, that is the initial program of creation coming out of God. And people often think of it as the energy component coming out of God that begins creation. So the first part of creation that comes out is a cosmic processor. What is a cosmic processor? The word used in yoga is chitta. But what is a cosmic processor? A processor simply takes input and throws out output. It has no intention of its own, a processor. Your computer processor takes input and throws out output, but what programs you run it and what input you feed is what determines what comes out, right? The processor itself has no intention of its own. So, that first processor that is created, the Prakriti or the Divine Mother, the initial program, processes the program through it, and out of that comes, why did this freeze again? Okay. Out of that comes the next processor. Okay. So out of that comes the many, many small individual processors. And we are looking at so many of them here. Each one of you is an individual processor. The chairs and tables and the furniture are all individual processors. So, now there are two kinds of processors over here. The live beings have, we call them as sentient beings, like each one of us, whereas the chair and the furniture here, we don't consider them as live, right? So that is a distinction, but all of them are a processor. Now for you and me, if somebody hits us, well, we may feel a pain or something like that. If you hit with strength to the chair, it may break. If you light fire to the chair, it will react in terms of burning, and so will you if somebody brings fire to you, right? So the thing is basically a programmed element or a processor. It simply takes out the input and throws out output in whatever way in which the processor works, right? So now, all of these are considered in a different zone from the creator into this zone, and we call this as zone B. The creator's zone is zone A, and this is zone B. And then out of that comes subtle vibrations. And what do the subtle vibrations look like? They are electromagnetic vibrations. Those electromagnetic vibrations, which we call, they manifest in the form of physiology, the gross body, and that comes out, we call it as C1 as the subtle vibration, electromagnetic vibration, into the physical body. And all of this is the zone C of the physical world that you and I perceive. So when you use your mobile phones, they connect with electromagnetic frequency. They are in the physical world, three-dimensional world. But they are a little more subtler than the gross body, right? So that is the only difference. Now, for a sentient being like you and me, there is an independent connection into God. The unique aspect of the sentient being is, it is connected into the mother of creation, the entire process of creation, but it also has an independent connection into God. So this is the distinction between a sentient being and things like the chair and table over here, the furniture over here, which are not sentient. Okay? So this is the structure of the spiritual nature of existence, and it seems to be validated in every religion. No difference. There are some religions like the non-theistic religions, like Buddhism is non-theistic. They don't believe or they don't particularly care about the idea of God, right? So what they talk about is only zone B and zone C. They have no interest in zone A over there, okay? And so that's the only difference. So essentially, where does our wellness come from? This is our spiritual being, that B2. This is our vibrational being, which is what you correlate with the mental state. Please come in, join us, come all the way to the front. And then we have the gross body over here, which is the physical being, right? So if we go look over here, our spiritual wellness is there, mental wellness there, and the physical wellness there, right? So now, you'll find it very interesting that we always talk about, when we talk about the wellness at the 3 dimension, we have to ask the question, why are we in this body? And that goes back to the whole explanation of the nature of creation. That is, out of God comes all of this subtle creation, from where this manifests, because it is the play of God, out of which all of creation takes place, right? So if there is a play going on, everybody has a role to play in creation. Then that is why we are very social beings. The World Health Organization defines health as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, which is very important, social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So now, let's get into the guts of the mechanism of how this communication works. We just established in the previous diagram, where we explained the structure of creation, how everything is cosmically connected. And when they are all connected, there is communication going on. Your internet is communicating with so many different places. Your mobile phone is communicating. And each one of you, whether in your family domain or your social domain, we are always talking to each other, right? Every time you meet each other, you find something new your friend has, and you said, aha, there's another way to do something different, right? So we are all communicating and learning from each other. So the communication mechanism that goes from the physical body into the subtle vibration and beyond, they are of 5 types. So the first one, which is very critical, without which there is no life. The life flowing within you is, how many people know what it means to be brain dead, and as the definition of death? You know, okay. One person, but not too many people are aware of that. Okay. See, what happens is, the brain and the spine, on a moment, they are called the central nervous system. On a moment-by-moment basis, when you are not even thinking, and right now you are not even aware of your breath or your heartbeat, right? And when you are sleeping, of course, you are not even aware of it. But your brain naturally controls your breath rate and your heart rate, and everything is alive in the body, right? The day the heart and the breath stops, you're dead, right? But then you can put people on a ECMO machine, the heart-lung machine, and you can have all the circulation of the blood with the heart, with the pumping going on, and you can have air going into the system. All the cells in the body are alive, but the person never wakes up. That is what is called the state of being brain dead, because the brain and the central nervous system no longer is able to do anything in the body. And just because you keep the body alive, the spirit or whatever is what you call as the life being, the person has gone out of the body, right? So that's what is called brain dead, and brain dead is the definition of a person being dead in today's world. You can preserve the cells in the body unendingly by feeding it oxygen and with glucose and all of that, and keep churning the heart. You can do that, but that never brings the person back, right? So the thing is, the most important element is the regulation of that, of the central nervous system, which governs the breath and the energy system of the body. So the word, those of you from the Indian background, you know the word prana. Prana means literally life, right? So the prana is the first form of communication, and this is essentially the regulation of the vitality in the system, and literally it is flowing along the brain and the spine. So prana flows along the central nervous system, and it is the regulator of vitality in the system. Okay? What is the second? And without that, nothing else works. So you have to be alive for everything else to work. The second one is running along the middle of the body, and often you have seen the 7 chakras associated with it, and the middle of the body. So that is called the samana. So the samana literally means is, the root word of it, that which balances. That is the meaning of samana. And what does it balance? Each one of us have been born for our own special role in the wisdom of God, right? So what it does is, it balances your inner being, what you have been programmed with as part of creation, along with whatever the external world brings you. So your inner dimension responding appropriately to the external demands, that is the balance that is there. And you know what that is called in medical language today? Anybody? It's called gene expression. You know, before the turn of the millennium and the century, there was this huge project called the Human Genome Project. There were 2 scientists who got a Nobel Prize from it. Anybody remember the names? One was Francis Collins, who used to be the director of the National Institutes of Health, and he got a knighthood from UK, so he became Sir Francis Collins. And the other one was a person called Craig Ventnor, and he ran the company called Human Genome Sciences, private sector company. Now when these people went after mapping the human genome, their main quest and their main thesis was, if we can tell from the human genome what kind of illnesses a person can get, then we'll be prepared ahead of time. Maybe we can do something about it, right? After they had mapped the human genome, they discovered something. The genes are only one part of the equation. The other part of the equation is what they called as epigenetic factors. That is all outside the genes. So, whatever comes from outside, the thoughts that go in your head, the food you eat, the air you smell or air you breathe in, the company you keep, the space you sit in, all of these are epigenetic factors. And if you're in the wrong place, it can trigger the bad genes. If you're in the right place, the bad genes get suppressed. This is the concept of Samanavadi, balancing of the internal relative to the needs of the external. So how do you recognize what is right for yourself? And this is where we say, by activating your inner awareness. We'll talk more about it in a moment. The third kind of communication that happens within us, and that is through the front part of the body, and that we call as the Udana, the red line over there that you see. The Udana is a communication that connects beyond the body into your spiritual domain. That is in another dimension, as you saw zone B, right? So that's where you communicate. And that is the source of, from a modern day understanding, it is the source of your immunity strength. A neurologist once told me, on average, if a person doesn't sleep for 9 continuous days, the person will fall dead. Sleep is the most important factor for maintaining the strength of your immune system. And you know how many people don't get adequate sleep? right? And to me it is a little bit of a tragic thing that in today's world our children are growing up with the idea that they have more and more fun things to do, so they want to compromise on sleep. There's another segment of us which I'll talk a little later about, is we do therapy for people. We got to call it as measured yoga therapy. And I get quite a many of these kids who are like 12 years and 15, 17 years old, 20-year-old. And these people, because of lack of sleep, their immune system becomes very weak and they develop different kinds of problems. Migraine headache, constant, discomfort, a problem like these ADHD, that is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And what else? I've seen people who have developed muscular weakness. Strange things, how people have been, exposed to. Please join us, come in.
I'm just looking.
Okay, okay. So, the thing is, you see, so the Udana, from a conventional medicine standpoint, is about the strengthening of the immune system. And in our current day understanding of immune system, there is something called innate immunity, and the other side is called adaptive immunity. Anybody know the difference between the two? You have heard of the term innate immunity? Okay. The innate immunity is all the memory in your white blood cells. And that wards off anything unwanted, it fights and kills them, right? Whereas adaptive immunity is what immunity that it develops on its own. And the most common way in which to understand it is when you are given a vaccine. The next day you may feel slightly feverish. That's the time when the vaccine is working on you, and slowly the immunity builds, right? So that is the cause idea of innate immunity. Adaptive immunity. So this adaptive immunity, from a modern perspective, is associated with vaccines. And they also know you need to take deep rest, you need to sleep. Only then the immunity builds, right? So from a yogic standpoint, we say it is our cosmic connectivity that enables all the systems in the body to adapt and heal itself. So once you evoke that connectivity, then in which case there is immense potential for healing many, many things. Okay, that is the yogic place of that healing. Now, the fourth and fifth communication, Vyana refers to thousands of channels that come out of the 7 chakras and Apana too. The Vyana controls all the fluids in the body, and the Apana controls the musculoskeletal system. Okay? So this is the picture of how all the different elements are connected, the communications that are happening. These are the 5 communications that keep the body going. And when any of them fails, you have dysfunction. A little bit, and all of this is of course explained in the book, because this is the basic mechanism of yoga. Everything else is a practice. Mechanism is how the practice inside of the asana, once you do the practice, how it works inside to make things happen. And so that you can practice yoga in many, many different ways. But all of them work through the same way, the 5 communication channels and the structure. So that's the point. So in traditional medicine systems, whether it's Chinese medicine system or Ayurveda, the Indian medicine system, they assess a person with 3 fingers at the wrist. And so often it is called pulse reading. It's really not looking at the heart rate. It is all about looking at the vibration movement between each finger. And based on that, an experienced traditional healer is able to assess where you have a fault in which part of the body and what may be a way to approach to cure it. Okay? So now, today, this same, what a traditional medicine system does, we can get it objectively through something called electrophotonic imaging. And this machine, the brand name is called Bioga. And what happens is, you have an electromagnet inside this box. And if anybody wants to see it, I have the box right over there. I can, if you want a demonstration or something, we can look at it later. And the next one, and inside that box, you put your finger inside of electromagnet, one finger at a time. And when the electromagnetism in your finger interacting with the electromagnetic field over there, the loose electrons that fly, the loose electrons create an aura-like image of each finger. So this is like this is the thumb of the right hand, index finger, middle finger, ring finger, and little finger, and this the same thing for the left hand. What is done is, this is a very scientific understanding based upon the Chinese understanding of the meridians, biomeridians that comes from the Chinese system. What has been done is, each of these aura is cut up into wedges, and each wedge corresponds to a different organ system. Like for example, this wedge at the bottom here corresponds to the throat, and the wedge on the top over here corresponds to the cerebral zone cortex. And so, like the right hand corresponds, by the way, in traditional medicine system there is a concept of a right and left. They have a different roles altogether. You know, we spoke about the samana vayu, that is the gene expression, the inner dimension, the outer dimension are affecting you, right? So what happens is, while modern medicine has not come up to understanding the difference between the left and the right is considered the maintenance system and the left the adaptive system. So whenever we look for healing, we want to make sure the adaptive system responds. Only then we know the problem will get corrected. When the maintenance system responds, it's like taking a pill that maintains you but doesn't completely resolve your problem. Right? So, please come in. Okay. So now, by taking the reading of these 10 fingers, we can get an objective measurement in about 40 organ systems. We are able to, how effective is the communication between different organ systems. They are categorized into 9 parts. The head systems, the cardiovascular systems, respiratory, endocrine, the musculoskeletal, which is the spine, the digestive system, the urinogenital system, peripheral nervous system, and the immune system. And within them we have all the subcategories. Like in the cardiovascular system, we can look at the circulation, which is part of the Vyana, right from the middle finger. And we can look at the heart muscle, which is separate from the coronary arteries. We can look at the coronary arteries separately. We can also look at your cerebral zone vessels, which indicates the whether your blood pressure regulation is good or not. So we can go into fine levels of details related to this. Now, you can see how this traditional medicine system, which people have started to adopt now, we can actually scientifically measure it. It's scientific measurement, right? The next element is now, we spoke about the higher than the vibrational measurement wherein, you remember B1, B2, right? C1, C2. Now, on the other hand, the spiritual domain is well beyond. So this is where we are measuring the subtle vibrations. This is what modern medicine measures. But there is a way to measure this too. And that's mind-boggling. You're going beyond the three-dimensional world into a higher dimension to zone B to measure that. Right? So how do we do that? We do that with something called the Metatron. And the Metatron, again I have that with me over here if you want to see it. All I have is a little box over here. And inside that box, I have something called a scalar wave generator and a torsion field generator. And all I need is any DNA element of you. So, if you give me one hair, you comb your hair and a hair comes off, put it into a transparent Ziploc bag, tiny bag, and put your name and your date of birth in it and give it to me. I'll just drop it into that box. And from that box over here, it connects into this machine, and this machine connects into my computer. It can actually go and give me a read of how well your spiritual element is connected to some 450 systems in your body. I can go down from the blood flow in the brain, the neurons in the brain, all the way to the chromosome and your DNA. Okay? So I can look at the heart, the muscle, I can look at I don't know whether people know the difference between the coronary arteries and the blood perfusion in the heart cells. Two different things. You see, the coronary arteries are the arteries that feed the muscles in the heart, right? Whereas on the other hand, capillaries come out of it and go and feed each cell. That is what measures blood perfusion. In fact, in today's area of cardiology research, a big part is they were always puzzled. There are a lot of people whose coronary arteries are fine and suddenly they get a heart attack. Why? It's not because of blockage in the coronary arteries, but it is because the capillaries, the perfusion into they call it as the smaller level blood vessels, where communication is not taking place. And this will tell me all of that. I can look at it. And so, to that degree I can go into a finer level. So, having established the scientific understanding of how we measure and the instruments that we have, now I can give you some simple lifestyle techniques whereby you can actually maintain your health in very good order. And these lifestyle techniques are all embedded in the book over there, because we wanted something in the book that not only explains the philosophy and the scientific understanding, but also practices that can benefit you. Come. And so here the first lifestyle element that we have is, how many of you here are slouching now? Keep your spine straight. And if you have ever noticed, if you keep your spine straight, you feel more alert and energetic. If you go like this, after a while you start feeling sleepy, drowsy. How many of you have noticed that? There you go, all of you have seen it, if you learn to observe yourself. And why is that the case? Because spine is where you have the regulation of your vitality, your central nervous system. So if the central nervous system is well stimulated, you're breathing well and your circulation is good, your heart is pumping well, the energy is flowing, you feel good, right? So I can tell you a lot more about the importance of spinal alignment. While some people, most of us, we only feel little kind of not as energetic, drowsy when you don't keep your spine straight. But there are situations where I have actually had a 16-year-old girl come to me once, and this girl had a unique problem. Her right hand was feeling numb most of the time. And the second problem for her was, she needed to go to the toilet every hour. Her bladder wouldn't hold very well. And the doctors couldn't find anything for that person. Everything looks wrong. They cannot tell what's going on with her. So once she came to me, and I was also puzzled. And then I noticed she was like this all the time. I told her, straighten yourself. And then we took a reading in my machine, and it showed that wherever the fault, everything became normal. So I said, stay like that for a couple of minutes. And then I asked her, how is the numbness in the fingers? All gone. Numbness went away. And then, after later on, a month later, she reported she no longer has the problem related to bladder control. She's like a normal person. You know, every 6 hours or so you urinate, not like every hour, right? So you can see how the nervous system thing, the spinal alignment, it doesn't happen for everyone, okay? But for some people it does affect them. Actually, another case is a person, and this was a 40-year-old man, who used to get constantly a headache, migraine headache. Tested everything, it would never go away. And all I had to do was straighten your spine, do some spinal stimulation, and after that the migraine was gone forever. Okay? But by the way, all migraines are not caused by that. There are different reasons. So don't think this, I'm telling you something as a solution for all migraines. Okay? Now, the second element is smooth breathing. What is the meaning of smooth breathing? Anytime, if you have noticed what happens to people when they get angry, their breathing is no longer smooth, very agitated. When somebody is feeling unhappy, again it is not normal. Whereas on the other hand, when you are in a normal state, and if you observe your breathing, it's very peaceful. You are not even aware of it. Whereas on the other hand, when you are stressed, you can feel yourself short breaths, right? So smooth breathing is an indicator of wellness within you. And as long as you are not very reactive to everything, your breathing will always be smooth, in full control of yourself. You can train yourself to have smooth breathing. And this is where the yoga's breathing techniques come in, where you are always told that whenever you exhale, your exhalation should be long, whereas inhalation should be, a little less, long. Why do we say that? The reason is, anatomically and physiologically, our lungs are built to expel air. Expelling is always easier, whereas inhalation requires a little bit of effort. So that is the reason that, this happens to keep the body smooth. The breath can have very big impact in making sure your mental state is in good shape. And by the way, there is another interesting element. If we think in terms of the spinal alignment and the breathing together, this is what is the functioning of the entire energy, the vitality regulation in the body. And guess what? It is vitality supplied to each part of your body that makes your true health, makes that part of the body function. Whichever part of the body gets the energy, that's what becomes function, right? And the third element is sleep. How many of you here wake up with an alarm? Half the world over here, okay? But I guess outside this room, it's probably 90% of the world, okay? But anyway, but the thing is basically, unless you need to catch a plane, you should never wake up with an alarm, okay? I'll have little more to say about that, but let me come in the fifth one. Let me cover the proper eating and then we'll come back to sleep and again. What is proper eating? Proper eating has a number of different qualities to it. You eat only when you are hungry. If you are not hungry, you shouldn't eat. And in fact, if you are not hungry, but later on you would become hungry, pack your food, take it with you. Okay? But on the other hand, don't force feed yourself because you have to eat at that time. Second thing is, by the way, all eating should be done when you are relaxed. So you can't be driving and munching away. You cannot do other things at the same time. When you're eating, you only eat. You sit down and eat with focus on your food. Mindful eating is what it's called. And the other thing is, when you look at the food, if the food doesn't feel right, don't eat it. When I say it doesn't feel right, not the color of it or what it's looking. You just feel this is not what I wanted. You shouldn't eat it. And you look at something else and you feel this is what I want, that's what you should. I know all the parents here are getting into trouble with their children now. So the thing is, basically what happens is, but the thing is, you see, what the children ask you should give them provided they are peaceful. Okay? And so that way, if you are in a peaceful state of mind, your body is telling you what nourishment you need. So you listen to it. Right? So, and what else do we know about proper eating? If you eat the right kind of food, after you've eaten the food, there can be no odor in your breath. If there is odor in your breath, that's not the right food for you. So the thing is basically, your bowel movements should be clear. So all of these are indications that whether the food is right for you or not. The state of mind with which you had the food, how you chose the food, when you ate the food, and the reaction to the food, all of these together tells you what is proper eating. Right? Now let me come back to the sleep and the morning period of being an observer. I recommend for everyone that you should sleep early enough. so that you can wake up without an alarm and be ready for the day. And you should wake up 2 to 3 hours before you are ready to begin your work day or school day or whatever. Why 2 to 3 hours before? The first hour of the day after you have woken up without an alarm should be self-observation. If you are used to a cup of coffee or tea, okay, make your cup of coffee or tea and just be observed in it. Keep your eyes half closed. If you are sitting on your deck behind, then watch the, you can be sensitive to the birds around over there or whatever. Don't think of anything related to work or activities for the day. Nothing. First hour of the day, just observe. Being an observer. If you can do that, 50% of your health is taken care of because your inner guidance will tell you what to do. Then, in the second hour of the day, make sure you get enough physical stimulation. So, this when I say you can go for, what I call walking meditation. What is walking meditation? Walking meditation, the speed of your walking doesn't count. It is how you walk with awareness with your breath and your inner awareness. So keep your eyes glued to the street where you are walking so that you know you're not putting it anywhere where you can hurt yourself. But on the other hand, watch your breath. Like with 2 or 3 strides, you complete your breath, and as you exhale, complete the exhalation about 4 or 5 strides, so the exhalation is slightly longer than inhalation. And just keep that regular awareness with it. If there is a group walking, it's a bad idea. You're talking to each other, no good. Okay? And this morning I saw somebody walking, listening to a podcast. I told the person, please don't do it. Watch your breath. Right? So, this is the kind of thing that how mindful walking, how you if you can bring that observation in your life, you will begin to connect with your inner awareness, and many things get solved from that process, right? So, while the book is from the Council for Yoga Accreditation, which is a combination of many yoga institutions, the organization that I come from is Life in Yoga Institute. We are based out of Maryland in the Washington DC area, and we are a research organization. And we have developed a system whereby you can provide good benefit to a lot of people in the world. So every day at 7 a.m. in the morning and at 5:30 in the evening Eastern Time, we have 2 yoga sessions that come on Zoom, and they are also streamed through YouTube. So it's accessible to the whole world and it's free. If you want to join the Zoom session, we'll see you there. It's also free to join in. And before you go, you see there is a bookmark over there, and that has all the details how you can join the daily yoga session. The morning yoga session is a mat-based yoga session. So it is something that you need to be in reasonably good physical state to do it. The evening session is actually chair-based yoga session. You can sit in a chair and do everything. And you'll find that typically we have about 70 or 80 seniors who come on Zoom, and they're all doing it every day. Okay, and from around the country. Now, the kinds of practices we do are a little different from the yoga practices that most of you, might have seen in yoga studios. Now, people who are familiar with what you would call the natural healing and those kinds of techniques like naturopathy, sound healing, aroma healing, and all of these things, all of them are part of the same yogic structure. Okay? In yoga, when people use the physical movements and the breathing as the primary thing, they forget vibration has a lot to do with it. We actively use vibrations. And you can actually do a demo of it and see for yourself. If you are doing a spinal twist, to twist yourself, we can all do something together and you can see how you feel. Take a deep breath in, and as you exhale, twist to one side. Keep your eyes closed and observe the stretch. And as you inhale, slowly come back. Exhale, twist to the other side. And inhale, come back. Now, with the next inhalation, stretch backward. Stretch out your neck and your shoulder backward, make a backward. Exhale, come forward. Close your eyes and observe. Did it feel like a good stretch? Now, we'll do the same stretch with sound vibration and tell me whether it's much more impactful or not. Right? So, take a deep breath in, and when we do the twist, we will do the sound ah, like audible ah. Okay? Take a deep breath in. Inhale, come back to the front, to the other side. Inhale, come back to the front, backward. Straighten yourself, keep your eyes closed and observe how you feel. Do you feel any difference between stretching with ah or simply being the way, with the sound vibration? How many people feel a difference? A little more at this. So vibrations have a very big impact. And how you use vibrations can change many things. And that is what we will see in our yoga sessions. Like we use chakra vibrations. We use, there is another breathing technique called the Ujjayi Pranayama. And it is something that stimulates the peripheral nervous system. And we use the spinal alignments with vibrations, with and without. And we do balancing. Actually, it is very interesting. In yoga, as I said, we pay a lot of attention to the left and right side, right? So what happens is, when we breathe, we are actually channelizing energy, right, through the central nervous system. In from modern physiological perspective, we know the right brain is considered the creative brain that impacts the left side of the body. And the left brain is considered the logical brain that impacts the right side of the body, right? So in yoga, we have a special exercise called alternate nostril breathing. Nadi Shodhana Pranayama, as it's called. So what happens is, you inhale from the left nostril and you visualize like it is going towards the right side, under the right eye. It curves around and you see the awareness come right to the middle of the head, just at the hairline of the forehead. And as you exhale visualizing going out of the right nostril but coming in a mirror image going out. You inhale from the right nostril coming up there and exhale that. This has the remarkable impact of balancing the two hemispheres of the brain. So what happens is, immediately what it does, it promotes the balance within the gene expressions of everything. In fact, there was a very interesting person whom I once met in a place called Yogaville in Virginia, where this lady used to be a lawyer in Los Angeles. And once she learned yoga, she told me every time there was a stressful situation, she would quietly go down and then do the alternate nostril breathing a few times and then come back. They're balancing the two lobes of the brain. So, any case. And then of course finally, we have the meditative observation at the end of each session. And that of course is what completes the inner awareness within, right? So once again, this has fallen asleep. Back. So, as you can see, the book we have is called Yoga Concepts for Global Application. a primer for beginners and beginning instructors. And as we said, this is a joint book, and then you have the practices, and of course it's available for you through Amazon. If anybody wants to pick up a book, there are a few copies available. And if we run out, there are more inside the car, in the trunk of the car, so it's not a problem. And the book is listed for $42, but Amazon has a sale, so it's 37 something. And the hardcover is 52 something, 52.78 over there. So now, all of these practices, the spinal alignment, breathing practice, all of these are there in the appendices. Then in the second part, power of breath, we do all the breathing practices. Then the chakra vibrations, how to use sounds, that's also there in chapter 26. So all of it is covered in the book. And it's interesting, the comment we had from a person who is a physician and in yoga, a researcher from India called Yogacharya Dr. Ananda Bhavnani. I don't know, any of you heard the name? He's from Pondicherry in India. So, quite a remarkable man. He's actually 50%, his mother is an American from Minnesota. Okay? And his father is a person who is half Irish and half Sindhi. Okay? And if I tell you a little bit about them, it will be very fascinating. So, his grandfather used to be raised in the pre-independence India in the city of Patna in Bihar. And there used to be an Irish family there. He fell in love with the girl, they got married, and he was himself a physician. And so they had this son, and the son was educated in Canada and the United States, and he met a wonderful lady in Minnesota, of Minnesotan background in Nebraska, and he married her. And but these people had so much of a spiritual calling within them, and he was a physician too, right? So they were traveling around the globe, and India, they went to Bengal and they learned some 120 types of breathing techniques that had different impact on the system from Bengal. And as they were traveling in India, they go to this place in Pondicherry. And in this place, there is a small, ashram over there. Actually, that place is called, I don't know whether you have heard, Kambli Swami Madam. No. So the thing is, you see, he goes over there. Kambli means blanket. And there used to be a, sadhu over there who used to be seated in the blanket, so they called it Kambli Swami. And so the thing is, this man goes over there, that Swamiji only knows Tamil. He looks at this Dr. Bhavnani and says, "You're my successor," he tells him in Tamil. And Dr. Bhavnani doesn't understand one word of Tamil, he speaks mainly English. So, but he understood him perfectly and he responded back to him in English. And both of them communicated. And so, this Dr. Bhavnani, he became Swami Geetananda. And his American wife became Meenakshi Devi. Okay? So she's still there. Swami Geetananda is no more, and their son is Ananda. And so, this man, he's also a physician, like his father and grandfather. And at the same time, well versed in yoga. So he writes over here, this is an excellent compilation of what yoga truly is. In a world that has confused yoga with asana, it is indeed a refreshing breeze of noble thoughts and that percolate through every page of this in-depth exploration of the culture of yoga. Attention to great detail is found in each and every line in the numerous illustrations and clarity to the teachings. I congratulate the team of CYI for putting together this much needed and valuable addition to the educational resources in modern yoga. So that's what he writes. Now you can see, this is the man over here, what he wrote. And the president of Indian Yoga Association, a lady by the name of Dr. Hansa Yogendra. Anybody know her from Mumbai? You know her. You have seen. Very nice. So this is what she writes over there. And then this is the person, the Islamic scholar, Dr. Arif Ali Nayat. And he writes, what I told you earlier. And this Dr. Sundara Kulkarni. Actually, she is a retired OBGYN. And she's part of our yoga training team. So I asked her, she was not part of our training till she read this book. So I told her she only attended our daily evening sessions. So she had the time in her hands, so I asked her to do a full proofreading of the final book. So when she proofread it, the comment she gave back, I said, do you mind if we put it in? So the comment she said was that even for her who was a novice, going through, but you see, she actually was lying. In the sense, what it is people who are exposed to different philosophies and they are thinking about it, they are no longer a novice. They have some set of structure to understand. So in her sense, she was a novice. And she said that for her, it was very helpful. And everything, made sense to her. It was easy to understand all of that. And because this is designed as a textbook, we have questions at the end of each chapter for people to think about. So she said all of them, fitted very well, and she wrote it, so we put that in. And this is Dr. Dilip Sarkar. Dr. Dilip Sarkar used to be the president of what is called the International Association of Yoga Therapists. And he's a good friend of mine. He used to be the chair of our institute board a few years back. And now, of course, he retired out of the board. So this was, he says he is much more into the physiological stuff. So he makes a point that in this book, we have stressed the importance of meditation and the spiritual connection. And yoga is much beyond simply the physical aspects. So this yoga book makes 9 points that are significantly different from how people generally understand yoga. Namely, that it is a spiritual philosophy, it's not merely a set of exercises, and yoga is more in the realm of vibration and realization within, and it is based on an ancient text called the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. And yoga philosophy does not require any rituals and belief. It is a personal experience that can also be measured scientifically, and it should be viewed as basic education, like reading, writing, arithmetic. So every children should be taught how to have a yogic lifestyle within themselves so that they can be happy, they can find fulfillment in life even as they work as a contributing member of a good society. So that is the view that is expressed, and the meditative practice are the higher pathways of yoga. So that is considered the important thing. You see, in every culture it was there before people became much more materialistic. How it was there was through religion. But sometimes religion puts on blinders for people. They need to trust it, and people ask you to trust it without any inquiry or without any reason. And whereas yoga does not require you to believe in everything. Just do your practices, look in terms of finding inner harmony for yourself. And that itself reveals whatever is the higher truth. So that is the understanding. And the book has 38 chapters divided into 9 parts. The first part is about what is yoga. And that first part, well, the first chapter tells you that yoga is the search of humanity about what is the meaning of life. And it doesn't matter which tradition, which culture anyone comes from, it is one and the same. And then the 5th chapter there, the 2nd chapter talks about how it can be applied to every aspect of living. Then the 3rd chapter about the origins of yoga, 4th chapter about how you can be a good yoga instructor. And then the 5th chapter is a very important chapter. All that about the nature of existence and how the communications work, which is the mechanism of yoga, is described over there. Then the 6th talks about special groups, like how do we understand it for children and for elderly people, people who are handicapped, how does yoga work, because it's about connecting within. And the 7th chapter talks about something that is popularly spoken of in yoga, but it is not as core to yoga as people think. You see, there is one yoga school in India that popularizes the concept of the 5 koshas, the pancha kosha, or the 5 sheets they talk of. That is not core to yoga. It actually comes more from an Upanishadic Vedic system. The 3rd chapter of the Taittiriya Upanishad called the Bhrigavali. So we actually translate the Bhrigavali, the Upanishad over there in the 7th chapter. But the key part is this concept of sheets or koshas are not measurable. And it's not measurable and it's not integral to Ayurveda either. But because of the popularization, people tend to talk about it. But because of that, people need to know where it comes from. We include it in the 7th chapter. Then the second section of the book, The Power of Breath in Yoga, is all about the first chapter, the introductory overview, is the physiology of breath. What does breath do to you? And then after that, we go into each of the different yoga practices in the many chapters. And then you saw that actually here. Again, this is close. So you saw that over here. That is, you have the chapters on the power of breath. Here, the Nadishotna Pranayama, Ujjayi Pranayama, Bhastrika, Dirgha Shwasa, long deep breath. Then you have Brahmari, Kapalabhati, and other breathing practices. So it goes into detail how to do it correctly, what are the different ways, and all of this. And that's the second part of the book. The third part of the book goes into Hatha Yoga. How many of you people here do yoga studio stretches? Raise your hand. 1, 2, okay, only 2 people over here. Okay. So if you have ever been tutored in the Hatha Yoga system, you will have a shock when you read this book. Because most people don't read the authentic Hatha Yoga texts, which are typically called the Hatha Yoga Pradipika and the Gheranda Samhita. When you go over there, you will quickly realize that often people, what they say is not directly coming from them. Okay? So we go, there are 4, 5, 6 chapters in that section. And then we go into the Tantra approach to yoga. And that is the bridge to higher meditative experiences. What is Tantra? Tantra means, Tanu means the body. Tanu trayate iti Tantra is the Sanskrit word. In other words, when you go beyond the body, that is Tantra. Now, you see here, when I turn this like this, there is no physical connection and there is infrared that is moving it. This is Tantra here. Your mobile phone is Tantra, right? But if this mechanical device can do this, you as a person, if you can go beyond the body and sense things, that is Tantra. In fact, you have the ability, if this mechanical device can do it, you can imbibe the ability to do that too. And this is what is intuitive sensing all about, right? Awakening your intuition. And then the fifth part of the book is the source of all knowledge in yoga is the culmination. But the purpose of yoga is that self-inquiry and to go into the intuitive domain. And as I said in the structure, that sentient being like us, we have one connection into the source of creation, that is Prakriti, and the other straight into God, which is the source of all knowledge, right? So our goal of it is to evoke that connection into God, whereby you can get direct access to supreme knowledge. That is, so you ask the question, you get the answer. And this is called the Samyama process in the Yoga Sutras. And then, of course, the sixth section of the book is meditative approaches to yoga. There are 4 chapters over there. The first one, we give an introductory overview of how meditation has been researched and what are the scientific understanding of research. And the meditation generally, as is spoken of, is called mindfulness meditation and transcendental meditation. That is how the research has segmented them. The mindfulness coming largely from Buddhist meditation techniques, specifically the Theravada Buddhism, popularly the Vipassana meditation. So and then we have a separate chapter on what we call as the transcendental meditation. And the last chapter on meditation is about how you can with simple techniques, bring a meditative routine to your daily life, right? And then after that, we have we have the integrative understanding of yoga in daily life, which means how you can apply it to many things in your daily life. Then the 8th section is functional and ethical requirements in leading a yoga class. That is only for instructors. And then a conclusion, which is the entire book that has been presented in 4 pages. The whole book is there, the summary of it. So the book contents, the chapters look like this. The 38 chapters over there in the appendices that all of them come in, and I've kind of given a view of it. An interesting part is when we spoke about the integrative understanding of yoga in daily life, we have a role of group effect and collective consciousness in yoga. We have Bhakti Yoga and the role of religious practices in yoga. Here, in this chapter, we have examples and explaining how, if you think in terms of any religious tradition, when you do various things, like for example the Islamic Salat, how there is a yoga in it. Now on the other hand, if you look at it from the hesychastic Christianity, where they do icon gazing, what kind of, how it affects you from a yogic process, the mechanism. We talk about, for instance, there's something called a Sri Vidya prayer system, a puja system, how yoga is involved. We talk about how consecrating a temple is all about yoga, the connection. And so everywhere we give details. In the Japanese Shinto system, how that works. In the Zoroastrian system, how it works. So the Jewish, how the Jewish Sabbath, what they do is again a yogic process. So we bring all of that so that people can understand the core to every religion is the same spirituality. There's no distinction. And the mechanism is one and the same. And then we go into this, the yoga and non-religious practices, which means if you're playing a game, how you can make it into a yogic environment. How if you do various practice, how in every aspect of your living, whether it is individually done practice or group practice, how you can make it yogic. And then the integrative health from yoga, role of yoga in global environmental and socio-economic balance. This a little more. When we say everything is interconnected, then we want to ask, how is all of that, how the whole world, if everything in existence is connected, how does yoga explain that? So for instance, when we talk of global warming, environmental impact, and all of these things, how they are all interconnected. So a lot of examples are given over there to explain that. So that is how the book is laid out, and the conclusion, as I have said. So now, if you have any questions, we can do that. But before that, 2 things. One is based on these scientific instruments. If you want to see it, I'll kind of open them and show them to you. And what we have done is, we have created, since 2014, we started doing the research. And from 2016 on, we have been offered something called measured yoga therapy. And how we measure with the instruments. So this is right there, up front. And our local measured yoga therapist is right over there. Hiral is trained in the system. And so if anybody needs therapy, and typically what happens is, well, for simple issues, it's very easy to deal with, but for simple issues, people generally don't come to us. They come to us after they have tried all the modern medicine and after they have failed everywhere. That's when they typically come to us, and makes our life difficult too. Because we have to undo many things. No, there are a number of reasons it makes it difficult is, we have no authority to give you guidance on your prescription medication. And your prescription medication itself may be interfering with the yogic practice that we are doing. So it makes our life difficult. So we stay on the right side and tell them, your prescription medication is between you and your doctor, but these are the practice we recommend. And so all of these things, as I said, that's how people come. But the one thing I'm going to recommend for everyone is, before you start getting ill health, or even if you have minor ill health, start with the daily practice. And the daily practice which we do is 365 days of the year. If you have to eat and sleep every day, no matter whether it is Christmas or Diwali, then in which case you have to do your yoga practice also every day. So we do it 365 days of the year, right? It's like eating and sleeping, right? So you can feel free to take what you want over there, and I will show you the instruments we have, what they look like. I brought them along so that you might find it curious enough. So, you saw that picture of that electrophotonic imaging, how you put your finger inside this box. You have done it before. Yeah, so how we measure the aura of the finger and how we are able to assess the 40 organ systems that you saw over there. So this is how this works. And then you have this is the magic box with its connector, where I can put any DNA of yours and we can connect into the spiritual domain of your being. Right inside, you see right at the bottom, the triangle over there is called the scalar wave generator. And on the four sides you see the boards. That is what carry the inquiry, which is done by a torsion field that writes on the scalar waves. So the development of this, actually in the initial stage this box wasn't there. In place of this box, there was a headphone. One side assessed your vibration and produced the scalar waves, and the other gave the torsion field. And it was developed by a physicist in Russia. His name is Vladimir Nesterov, and he worked out of Omsk in Siberia. Then what happened was there was a yogi in the Netherlands, and we don't know his real name. He goes by the name MGM, Meta Grand Master, and we have connected with him. But this man, I suspect, he might have been part of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi's group, because Maharishi spent the last 15 years of his life in the Netherlands. And this man invented this box. And so that is how that man understood what the headphones were doing. So earlier when you use the headphone, you need the person over there to assess and heal. Once we use a hair, we can do it remotely anywhere. It makes no difference. So, and the box that goes under it is, this is really the Metatron box. So, this is the Metatron box that was, this thing, and this connects into that, and that's how it works. So, that gives you an example of it, and all of these we can work with Hiral over here if any of you are interested. I am actually leaving tomorrow morning. I understand there is a later program today that Hiral has arranged, and everybody here knows about it?
No, you can announce it. Only few people know.
Okay. So if anybody, and what that program is all about, you want to come and explain briefly?
Yes.
Come.
Thank you so much. The program is about what he has said about the daily online yoga classes that we have been doing, and you can do it today and experience yourself by attending that class. And if you have any questions doing the yoga or whatever exercise that we do, he has done quite a good, kind of starting from toe to head, arranged in a way that 1.5 hours you do. Consistency is required, but after a certain period of time, you will start seeing the results yourself and realizing how it is effective for you. So even while 1 day or 2 day you are missing after a month, that's okay. But you can do throughout the day some of the exercise while driving or eating food like he was mentioning, and be in a meditative state where you can be always peaceful and calm. So that practice we are going to do today, 5:30 to 7. If anybody is interested, please tell me. I will share the address. And then,
say it to people right now. Give them the address.
no, but if we need to let the, I can share the address right now.
Yeah.
We just need to, it's a limited space, so we just need to see how many people.
What happens is yoga will find just enough people.
Yes. So, yes, in the basement we have, so could you please say the address?
It's 777, I mean, if you can write it down. 7770 St. Marlow Country Club Parkway, Duluth.
Thank
Right.
you.
But if you are coming, we will need to know your name
So
as
they
per
will
your
let us
ID,
know, yeah.
because we have security that will check at the gate.
Yes. So 5:30 to 7, anybody is interested, please come over and join us. We do live yoga and experience that inner awareness and then get to know yourself well, and then you can do on a daily basis and be fit throughout the
So just to, what he'll explain, the idea of the evening session was that what we do regularly in the evening, we do it as a practice. And when we do it as a practice, there isn't time for explanation every day. So she asked me whether for the group, people who are not exposed to it, what does each exercise do to them? So that was the plan for what we are going to do over there, right? Any other questions?
Is that recording for the daily yoga session on YouTube?
Yes.
So it is not necessary that you always have to have 5:30 to 7. You can use the recording next day according to your availability and just do it for an hour or so and see the difference throughout your body. It's so amazing. So I'm sure everybody, we truly appreciate you being here and hearing from him and experience throughout, next of the, yes.
No questions. I've left everybody speechless.
I have a question.
Yes.
The question relates to daily life, daily living, or daily living, and then the concepts of yoga, right? So in our daily living, it's totally disorderly, but for most of us, it's all kinds of chaos.
Yes.
Right? So there's, of course, all the worldly things, the craziness outside in the world. All the greed, ambition, acquisition, oppression, you can name
There's one word for all of that.
dozens of things.
That one word for that is your expectations and the expectations of others of you.
Okay.
So all the expectations is one word for that,
We're
right?
all conditioned
Yes.
with the expectations, and everybody does that. We go about doing crazy things all day long. And then someone like you comes along and says, okay, here's a book, and here are all the concepts. And read these and see, where they go away. Now, what is the relationship? Would those go away, or do I need to first make them go away and then do something?
I'll answer the question in a way of a real life person that is very illustrative for you. Okay? I have a sister who lives in Florida. Okay? And she has 2 sons. The younger son is a person who doesn't get affected by anything. In fact, he was like that from the time when he was very young. When he was like the first grade, like 6 years old or something like that, right from that time, he would get bad grades in something, a test or something, he will come home, and my brother-in-law would look into the child's eye and say, you know, you have done bad. You know, you should be studying better. Why did you do this? What went wrong? This thing. And this 6-year-old would be listening to his father all this thing. And so in the end, when he asks him, so what have you to say about it? He'll say, I'm finished. So his father will ask him, what do you mean I'm finished? He'll say, I'm finished. And he'll walk away. Okay? And so his father used to say, this fellow takes no stress on himself, but he gives in that process stress to everyone else. Okay? Now, the key thing is, now this fellow is 24 years old. And in his home, his father is a person who has a lot of expectations. And the older brother also is of that same category. And the mother is caught in between. All of them are spinning over there. But it doesn't touch this fellow one bit. He's in the same home. You can tell him anything he feels like, he'll smile and go away and he'll do exactly what he wants. And everything in life works for him. You see, the thing is, you see, he got into whichever school he wanted to, everything came out of the school, job landed in his lap, very happy, everything works for him. Whereas for his brother who is older, everything is a struggle because he has this thing. And what is the secret ingredient this young fellow had right from his young age? I was telling you about the first hour of the day being an observer. And like all these young kids, he goes to sleep late and he wakes up late. But he will not wake up with an alarm. And when he wakes up, for the next hour, he's just lying in the bed like that, daydreaming, whatever. And only after about an hour or so, he will get up. And when he gets up, he's ready for the day. But till he gets up, you cannot shake him. He's connecting with his inner dimension. So in other words, what it is the question you ask about, you know, everybody has expectations, and you may have expectations of your own and of people around you, and people around you have expectations of you. You have let all of them get to you. So what happens is, if you learn to understand, you see what happens is, this book, practically speaking, is only for people who want to intellectually understand. But the book will not lead you into that state. It is your personal practice that will lead you into your state of that awareness. So in other words, that is why I say that if you can adapt some of these 5 techniques I said, like in the morning being an observer, not letting anything come into your mind, then in which case slowly over a period of time you become less and less affected by people around you. What is life all about? Life is all about caring without attachment. So when you live in a family, you live in a society, so you have to care wherever you can do. But you can only do the best without attachment. You cannot feel so responsible that your shoulder feels crunched with all the thoughts, I have to get this done, otherwise the roof is going to fall. You cannot lead a life that way. All you can do is, you can care within the dimension of the time and space that you can do peacefully. And when you do it peacefully, whatever happens, so be it. That's the way it was meant to be. If you can take that attitude in life, everything gets solved. But if you let the expectations get the better of you, then that won't happen. And by the way, it is not easy to change from the way in which everything is hitting you and suddenly next day morning you are going to change. Because of this, that doesn't happen. That is why you need daily training practice. And over a period of 10 years, you can transform yourself. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. There's one thing about creating practice, right?
Yes.
So sometimes, it can take 4 years, some people never change, some people change by day. Yeah, you can explain it scientifically. In the end, I think it's up to the person.
Absolutely. If anybody wants the book and you want me to sign it as the author signing, I'll be happy to do that. Yes, question? Go ahead. No question. Come right here. questions? Yes. Yeah. I'll answer that question for you. You asked a very interesting question, and that, yeah, go ahead.
How it affects the karma part and the reincarnation. I know it doesn't apply to all the way of philosophy, but in certain ways.
You see, in many ways, the question he has asked is a question that there is a reverse side to it, which is what his intent of the question is. You'll find that some people are able to experience wonderful things spiritually and they talk about it, and others are unable to do that. Everybody is different. Why? What? How? How does it work? So in yoga, there is a very interesting concept. And by the way, this concept is not as clearly stated in other places. That is, when the first creation takes place, God allocates the program, through the creative process, how you saw each individual entity is allocated part of the program for all of creation to function, right? So that initial allocated program, the word used in the Yoga Sutras, in the yoga literature, is called klesha. And then after that, after the first birth, when you react to things, and reacting today we know, what is the reactive process, the self-learning process called in computer language? AI, artificial intelligence, the conversation of these times, right? So what happens is, when you react to things, you create new program within yourself. That is called karma, right? So this is the distinction between klesha and karma. And if you go deeper into this, you can quickly understand. Then from a Christian perspective, you talk of the original sin, the Garden of Eden and all of that you talk about, is basically, that becomes the first creation. And then after that comes the reactive process that builds karma, right? So there is one philosophy that is among all the other philosophies that you sometimes relate with yoga. It is called Kashmir Shaivism. I don't know how many people have heard of it. In Kashmir Shaivism, they say that there are four types, in four states in which people may be at any time. Okay? For somebody who is completely purified, and every religion talks about purification as the way for higher consciousness, right? And what is the meaning of the complete purification from a yogic perspective? The channels of communication, the nadis, are completely purified and open. When that happens, all you need to do is mentally ask, who am I? What is God? And you get all the answers directly. Now, however, most people are not over there. Very rare. That's some one in several millions, whatever. The second category that comes in is called people on whom the klesha or the original program of creation is no longer there. All that is there is the karma, the reactive things that have gotten into them. For them, it is very simple to get over. All they need is an equal and opposite vibration. The concept of personal mantra that comes in. If you have an equal and opposite vibration of what goes within you, it is called harmonic vibration. Then it transcends you. And in fact, the scalar wave is based upon equal and opposite vibration. Okay? And so that is called in the Kashmir Shaivism as the second level, or Shaktopaya. The first is called Shambhopaya, second Shaktopaya. Then the third is for whom there is some level of the klesha, the original program, plus the karmas. But the klesha is small enough that it can be overcome in the existing lifetime. So to get over that, you need to go through the ringer of life and work with all the expectations of yourself, others, and as you age, you become a little purified. At that time, you can use a mantra, like the Shaktopaya, and then attain. And this third level in the Kashmir Shaivism is called Anavopaya. Anavopai comes from the word anu. Anu means the smallest particle. In other words, we have to engage with matters related to the physical world. And then the fourth, they say, are people whose klesha, or the original program, is so huge, there is no hope for them to attain the higher realization in this lifetime. For that, they say there is no solution, anupai. So that is how Kashmir Shaivism divides. So the concept of klesha, karma, how they work through, probably this gives you a deeper description of what you asked, right?
So what does yoga say about reincarnation?
See, the thing is basically, yogic philosophy and all the Eastern philosophies speak about the concept of karma, cycle and reincarnation. Yoga is in the same place. In fact, what it is people who know a little bit about the deeper elements of Christianity. Okay? In early Christianity, I don't know how many people know, there used to be 5 popes, the 5 patriarchs. Do you know the history of Christianity? Like the 5 patriarchs, one in Damascus, one in Alexandria in Egypt, and one in Jerusalem, and where else? Rome, of course, one, and Damascus, Rome, Jerusalem, then, that is Constantinople, Ankara, right? So these were the 5 patriarchs, the original 5 popes. Then, of course, the Islamic culture came and took them all away. And initially when these popes used to discuss, each of them had a philosophical view that was different. And in fact, the idea of reincarnation was part of one of the popes' thinking, but that pope got kicked out by the Muslim invasion and all of that. So unfortunately, what has happened is, in Christianity and Islam, unlike the yogic tradition, asks you to have fixed beliefs, as opposed to let your own experience teach you. And that is when you get into the fixed belief silo, then you get into trouble. Of course, I have to also say, even the other religions of the world, very often people get into fixed belief. And sometimes when I look at them, it's not limited to any one religion, it's there everywhere. Yes? Go ahead, come. Yes?
Before when you were saying about that man who was stress free and everything fell into place, I was wondering, to change from everything being stressed, does it have to be 10 years, or can it be less?
Okay. Thank you.
Great question.
So the question that asked is, how do you attain that state? Does it happen in a long period of time training, or does it happen very quickly? Okay? See, what happens is, every person is different. And many of you, having gone through the ringer of life with enough grey hair on your head, you're probably already 90-95% of the way there. Some of you. So when you're there, all it requires is maybe a few weeks of practice and you find your zone within. Okay? But for somebody else, it may be that they would need to do 10 years of practice, right? Now, for this young man that you were talking about, right? For this young man, right from his birth, he was like that. Okay? Now, of course, what happened was this child had breathing issues right from the time the child was born. So for the first 2 years of the life, the child was literally struggling for mere survival. But after that, when he grew out of it, maybe if it is the prostate, I don't know. But whatever it was, this child, after that, became that non-reactive person. Whatever you tell this person makes no impact on that child, right? So it's different. People are born, it's different for everyone. Somebody for whom it might be one trigger event in their life that completely transforms them, right?
So time is not a factor necessarily.
No, time is not necessarily a factor. Actually, going through the ringer of life, everybody is in the path of yoga. Yes?
So as a teenager, how do you think I should approach life?
First thing, make sure you don't wake up with an alarm. And get enough sleep, go to sleep early, and make sure when you wake up in the morning, you spend a little bit of time without the mind being clear, just being there. And if you practice that long enough, automatically your inner sense will guide you what you should be doing. See, from a Christian background, they call it having the ability to hear the voice of your conscience. So when you stay connected within, your inner dimension really guides you. Well, looks like all questions are done, and it is 4 o'clock, right? Or 4 minutes to 4?
2 minutes before.
Few minutes? Oh, you're very welcome.